Hey folks, so this video I'm going to talk about Satan and address some of the popular misconceptions that this entity has surrounding its name. I would say in like the last few decades, actually a little longer than that, Satanism has really taken off, and people seem to believe that Satan is this rebellious superhero who is fighting against God and is fighting a tyrant. They like to think that Satan is the good guy as opposed to God, and he's fighting for fighting for freedom. He's fighting against God for freedom, and every kind of other thing that they can think of. Well, actually, the truth is that this Satan that people look up to, in reality, is nothing more than another loyal servant of the demiurge. Satan does God's bidding. He is God's henchman. He's his chief lieutenant and prosecutor. That's his role. Satan isn't going against God because Satan is with God. He's on God's side. So it's kind of like picture the scenario. You're trying to protest the government, right? And you find a cop. And you go up to the cop and say, "Hell the police! Hell the police!" Because you think the police are freedom fighters going against the government. That cop is probably going to stand there and look at you and laugh. It's the same situation. Okay? The cop is on the side of the government. He's just doing the government's bidding. The same can be said for Satan in the Bible. He's not there opposed to God. He is an emissary of the demiurge. He does his bidding. And the popular story to demonstrate that is the book of Job. When you read the book of Job, you see that Satan has the role of a tempter. And Satan presents himself at the beginning of the story with all the other angels in council with God. Already a red flag. Why are you in council with a being all cordial if you're supposed to be opposed to him and fighting him? Because it's not there. It's not true. It's a misconception. Satan goes before the council of God to meet with God and the other angels, and they place a bet against this man named Job. And to test Job's faith, Satan offers to go down and to torture the man. And God agrees because God thinks that he's going to win this bet. The whole deal is Satan thinks that Job is going to turn on God when he loses all his nice stuff. And God says, "Oh no, Job is a faithful slave. He'll love me forever. Even if you do all the bad shit to him, he'll still love me and worship me." Well, by the end of the story, you find out that God was correct. Job is a very good slave and he worships God. And even after God allowed Satan, his henchman, to take and kill his family and everything else that belongs to him, he still gets on his knees and worships the bastard. Very strange. But moving on. So that's the template of what Satan is. Satan is a tempter. He is a tester. He is there to test and tempt the faith of those who claim to worship Yaldabaoth, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever you want to call the fucking demon, because that's essentially what it is. Okay, so Satan is there to test and prune the faith of Yahweh's faithful humans. He's not there as an agent of evil against God. No, he's serving God. He's serving with God faithfully. And actually, in the Bible, Satan is not mentioned very often. As a matter of fact, when you compare it, all the evil and destruction happening in the Bible, Jehovah, Yahweh, the demiurge, is responsible for the majority of all of it. And the only times where Satan is seen killing in the Bible is at the behest of God, telling him to do so. Which leads me to my next point, and this is going to be a surprise to most people. Well, I hope not for the ones on my YouTube channel, but there is an evil one present in the Bible, but it's not Satan. It's the very God of the book. God is both the thing that is given worship, the thing that is given fear and praise, and at the same time, he is also the evil one. That is the wicked being in the Bible. God is playing both sides of the fences. And people think there is a secondary being doing all the evil and that God is doing all the good. No, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. There is a reason why for thousands of years human beings have been praying to this God and things have gotten worse. And most human beings do believe in and pray to this God. When you consider the numbers, for example, Islam and Christianity, Judaism, they all worship Yahweh. They all worship the demiurge. That's billions of people by itself right there. And for thousands of years, billions of people have been praying, pleading, crying out, begging God to change the world for the better, make things better, and things have gotten worse. You ever wonder why? Because the God that people are worshiping and praying to is a fucking vampiric demon. The ancient Gnostics knew this. They saw it for what it was. The God that created this world is quite literally a psychopath, a maniac, a malevolent, sadistic devil. And his own holy books condemns him to be that. I mean, just read the Old Testament through. Read the gruesome stories. I can give you a few examples, but even if I had a page full of examples, I would have to make an hour video just to run through all of them, probably even more than an hour. But I'll give you some examples. First of all, in the very first beginning of the book, God kills off the entire population of the world because they disobeyed him. So he has a narcissistic ego problem. He constantly needs to be worshiped. He needs to be obeyed. And if he's not, he throws temper tantrums and kills people. And his human servants in the Bible are often just as insane as he is. Moses, for example, was a killer. He commanded genocides, the same as Samuel, who got mad when he told King Saul to go and do genocide against an entire village, instructed to kill all the women, the children, the animals. And apparently Saul had pity and spared some of the animals, and this upset Samuel. The man was actually upset that he didn't go through and kill everything in the village. So this is the psychopath situation that you have set up here. You have a God that uses cannibalism as a form of divine punishment. I will make you to eat the flesh of your sons and daughters. You can look that up. I mean, even in Isaiah, he admits verbatim, quote, I form the light and I create darkness. I make peace and I create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So when you see darkness and evil in the world, don't blame it on Satan. I, the Lord, do all these things. He's admitting it in plain sight. Satan is used conveniently as a scapegoat. That's another part of why he's there in the stories, as a scapegoat for all the insanity that God does and permits in the world. The very God that people worship is evil, and he has admitted that he is evil and created evil. There are Bible scriptures where God sends out demon spirits to torment people. Now, if God is supposed to be all good, holy, and benevolent, what is he doing consorting with demons and commanding demons? Doesn't make any sense, does it? No, because the God that people worship, again, is not good. It is itself the chief demon. Yaldabaoth, the demiurge. Okay. I mean, again, that goes back to the point that I was saying. There's a reason why the world hasn't gotten any better for thousands of years. And it's that very same fact. The entity that people are feeding their worship to is evil and doesn't give a damn about them. It feeds on your pain, suffering, misery, and worship. I was just thinking the other day, remembering when I was a devout Christian, and the thought came to me to remember how I felt after I left church all the time. Each and every time I would go to church and leave, I would feel drained, tired. I would feel like I needed a nap. Each and every single day, and I couldn't figure out why. Every time I went to church, I felt that way. Only at church. Why did it feel like I was being drained out of all of my energy? Like in the middle of the day, I would actually have to go home and get into bed and sleep. Take a nap after church. Why? Because I was feeding my energy to a vampire and making it stronger with my worship. And you see, when I realized all of that years later, I was disgusted with myself that I contributed to the worship of this vile, sadistic monster who doesn't deserve worship, love, or kindness. The God in heaven deserves to be killed, murdered. It deserves vicious violence. It deserves rebellion and hatred because it is a psychopath, a celestial demon that can never be good and that will never allow the world to be a good place because the world was made in his image and after his likeness. When you see violence and destruction in the world and pain and suffering, God wanted it to be so. He did it on purpose. It feeds him. And this is knowledge that is known only to those who give themselves time to listen to their spirit. And it will tell them, this is the God that you have. This is the God that you worship. I mean, it really is an energy-sucking vampire. Just think about it. All the prayers and worship going up every single day. The Muslims by themselves. Muslims pray 5 times a day. That's a lot of prayer. And yet the world is as it is. Isn't even a little bit better. Something to think about. So yes, there is evil in the Bible, and there is an evil entity in the Bible, and it is the God. It's the God that people worship. It alone is the true face of evil in that book. So you have to understand that. You get on your knees and pray. You're not praying to something that has their best interest at heart. Stop praying. Get off your knees. Trust in yourself. Look for God within yourself. Because the one out there doesn't give a shit about you. I mean, really, for a thought experiment, just go and look up all the atrocities that God commits in the Bible. It's actually insane to look at this stuff. And then look at the atrocities that the prophets commit. I mean, another good example, you got the prophet Elijah. Apparently, he's walking somewhere and some kids harass him about being bald. And instead of being a reasonable adult and continuing to ignore and walk away from the children, the man turns around, uses the Lord's name, and calls down a curse against those children. And God answers his curse and sends 2 bears to kill 42 children, maul them to death. Read it. It's there in the Bible. So the man of God called a curse, and God answered his curse and killed children, which was nothing to him because, I mean, this is the same God that killed all the newborn in Egypt. So it's funny. But anyway, going back to the point. So yeah, Satan isn't this arch enemy of God. And you have to dismiss that. Okay? You've been lied to. Satan is not the arch enemy going against God. He's not some hero. He's working on the same side. So just something else to think about when you get the urge to do the old hell Satan. Remember who you're speaking about.